Hello snacks, welcome back, my name is Jack. Today I'm here to offer you lads out there some dating advice, in one of its most simplest forms. The process being, don't be the men in these stories. And for those of you who think this is just going to be an episode of man bashing, be rest assured that one of these stories is a great insight into the very fact that, whoa, shocking! Men as human beings are complicated too! We'll get onto that one later. For now we begin with a sad but hopeful story that began just 10 days ago in r/Aita. Am I the a-hole for misleading my cousin and destroying his marriage? So there's some really weird drama in my family and I feel like I'm going insane. So here's the background. My family is a little unusual. There are 3 adults and 2 children. The adults are me, my wife, and another woman best described as my wife's platonic life partner, and also my very dear friend. I'll call the partner Sally. Sally has lived with us for 20 years. The kids call her Ma. We live in a 4-bedroom house, and Sally and the kids each have their own bedrooms. Sally is aromantic and asexual. She and my wife love each other very much, but platonically. Sally is like a sister to me. I cannot overstate how incredibly platonic her relationships with both of us have always been. We're all very happy together. I've been super glad we have her since we had the kids. Parenting is so much easier when you have a numbers advantage. Now, my cousin Dave has been married to his wife Mary for something like 15 years. They have 2 kids. Well, Dave talked Mary into opening the relationship about a year ago, and now they're getting divorced because he's struggling to find anyone willing to date him. Mary isn't, and he's incredibly pissy about it, and it's destroying their relationship. And by it, I kind of mean he's. He's jealous and resentful and making that her problem. Oh, and also, now, mine, because he says it's my fault. According to him, he thought it would totally work great because my family
make polygamy and relationships open look easy.
Which... what? Setting aside that Sally's relationships with both my wife and me are platonic, there's no open relationship in our household. Sally and I each get a weekly night with my wife, as in a date night. I take the kids on her night, she takes them on mine. Look, I did say parenting is easier with the numbers advantage. I think my wife and I have significantly more quality time together than we would if it was just the 2 of us. When the kids can't sleep, they go to Sally, so my wife and I are never disturbed after we go to bed. Sometimes Sally and I go to games together, and my wife takes the kids then because she's not into sports ball. No one in our house is dating anyone from outside it. These are committed relationships that are, to all intents and purposes, exclusive. None of us have ever mentioned seeing anyone else. Even then, if we were, which, again, we're not, I don't see how that would make me responsible for him treating Mary terribly because he's jealous. Somehow he was apparently convinced that he and his beer gut would get all the girls, but no men would be interested in a charming, kind woman who keeps herself in reasonable shape and bakes the best cupcakes you will ever taste. I'd have dismissed this out of hand, but my aunt, his mother, and like 6 other family members agree that I'm the a-hole and have been insisting I should apologize to my idiot cousin and help him talk Mary into closing the relationship and staying with him. I like Mary. We've been friends for 20 years and she's good people. Also friends with my wife and Sally and a wonderful aunt to my kids. Given the choice between her and Dave, I'd keep Mary in the family along with her kids. So someone in my family is insane here. Is it me or them? Who's the a-hole? Popular consensus? Let Mary move in. Frick Dave. Seriously, does no one read the point when they said they're exclusive? Trying to hammer that into the family and then inviting someone on the outside into the relationship is... This is why we always need to take Reddit comments with a very light grain of salt. I mean, just edit this to say,
I didn't read the story.
It does leave you to wonder, though, despite the obvious, compelling statement OP has made about their family's dynamic, why does his whole rest of the family still think he's the one to be blamed for clearly Dave's own stupid assumptions? Well, we learn why in the update as to what has been said behind closed doors, the doors being the OP in this instance. as well as Dave's sister joining the fray in an attempt to make Dave open his eyes, but it just leads to a horrifying escalation like a snowball effect. Yeah, Dave gets abusive in this update. So this update comes just a day later, and a quick summary on the events that occurred in the first story. So it turns out that unbeknownst to me, Dave's sister Tina reads this sub a lot, and she saw my post and immediately figured out that it was me posting about her brother, and she won't tell me if she was one of the commenters or not, but for those of you who called that Dave was the golden child, Tina says you were right on the money. She called me this morning, and she seemed to find that really validating, and I have literally never heard her sound so happy. She's usually pretty depressed, so thanks, everyone who decided to read into their family dynamics. You did her a solid. Now, that was about 8 a.m. I had to get off the phone and head to work, and then at about 10, I get a text from my wife that just said, "Come home now." I got another one just as I was starting the car that said, "The kids are fine," which I really appreciate, because then at least let me change gears from panic to concern. At some point, we might discuss that. It would be good to include that in the first text. Anyway, not the point. I got home as fast as I safely could. I pulled up on the verge and tried to go into the front door, but the handle's broken. Mary's car was parked in the driveway. I had to go in through the garage. Inside there was my wife, Mary, and Mary's eldest, Jack, 12-year-old male. Mary was banging around the kitchen and Jack was crying on my wife. As I understand it, this is what happened. So just before she called me, Tina texted her brother a link to the post and made some kind of comment about it. I don't know what exactly she said, but Dave went into a rage. Like the kind I thought he grew out of when we were teenagers. Breaking stuff and screaming. I thought the last time he did it was the time he hit my little brother and I beat the hell out of him. Look, I'm not saying it was right, but we were kids. I'm also not saying I'm sorry, to be honest. And then he hit Mary. She's got a bruise coming up on her face. God, I'm shaking writing this. I feel like it's my fault. I can't remember if we told her that he used to be like that. We honestly thought he'd grown out of it. Mary managed to get the kids in the car and drove straight to our place because she knew there'd be someone home. Sally's a stay-at-home mother, and my wife works from home some days, and there's just generally someone home. Dave followed and tried to force his way in. Apparently, my expensive security door was worth the money because he managed to damage the handle, but the door stayed closed. Seems he gave up and ran when my wife yelled that I was on my way home. Jack burst into tears while he and I were moving furniture, so we talked and hugged for a bit, and now he's having a lie down in my bed because he was kinda wrung out. We're waiting for a locksmith as well to fix the door. After that, we're going to take him and Mary to the police station to make a report and give statements and whatever is involved in all that. Sally took our kids and Mary's youngest to my parents' place in case Dave came back. They're too young for this stuff. Jack refused to leave his mother. We're going to meet up with them after the police station. Those of you who said we should adopt Mary are getting their wish, at least for now. Jack's going to be sleeping in my youngest big boy's bed. The kidlet gets to stay in his cot and sleep in Sally's room for a bit. And Mary's youngest and my eldest will be sharing a room because they're only a few months apart and they get on well. Mary's sleeping on our couch until we get all of this figured out. Just gotta say, if you are now aware that Dave has seen you post these Reddit stories about him, the last thing you should be doing is posting about what the game plan is to make sure Mary and the kids are safe and away from him. Don't let us know specifically where the kids are going. I mean, unless that's like a bait to, see if Dave goes over there. Like, it's one thing to go to Sally's parents' place, but your parents' place? So Dave's own family? Yeah, wow, great job. I don't know, man. It's just... He was probably typing this in the heat of the moment, so I don't blame them, but also, come on! Now, what about why the family thought that the OP was the a-hole, despite Dave clearly acting on his own? Well, I should add that, according to Tina, Dave was telling his family that I talked him into the open marriage thing specifically because I wanted to sleep with Mary. Plus a bunch of other stuff that I've honestly forgotten. It's been an absolute hell of a day, and it's only 2:30. I'm pretty sure I just acquired a 12-year-old son 10 years early and seriously messed up, at least for a while. And I have to figure out how I'm going to fit Jack's needs into my life without neglecting my own kids. I can't even tell if I'm exaggerating. Jack's a wreck, and maybe those Please be my dad now. Vibes are temporary, but maybe they're not, you know? Ramble, ramble, ramble. Please don't be mad at Tina. I don't think there's any way she could have predicted Dave would lose his mind. Well, on that note,
Honestly, Tina deserves to be dragged over the coals for this. She put way too many people in danger so she could get holier than thou moment. Genuinely didn't think that through one bit.
good to see the comments are absolutely taking what you said with the utmost respect. As this comment's saying, like, yeah, let's not blame Tina for the behavior of her brother. Maybe if he's always been prone to these violent outbursts, but assuming these people are in their late 20s to early 30s at least, and the only last recorded time he's been violent was in your late teens, I don't blame Tina at all for assuming that he'd at most just yell a bit and then, you know, stomp off in a little bit of a grump, just like every civilized adult would when they're confronted with something they don't want to really face. You are responsible for your actions and their consequences. Now, you may be justified in your reaction, but it is still 100% your responsibility for how you respond. I would argue that the brother had absolutely no justification for responding like a psychopath. And to further make a great counter-argument to blaming Tina for this, lest you agree with this, what I've just said, are you ready to relinquish your agency to a third party? Would you say that a third party is capable of controlling you through their actions? Like, that's what you're saying if you're disagreeing. What do you think about that, though? Is that a valid defense of Tina here? Or is that also, ironically, excusing Tina from her own responsibility in this matter? Though even then, I feel like if we are going to still blame Tina in some capacity, Tina's like the person being charged for slapping versus the person being charged for attempted murder. Like, yeah, you slapped the guy, but then he tried to murder you, so you don't get an excuse to escalate something, you know? It doesn't all end there, though. Another 2 days later, well, a day later, but 2 days from the original post, there is a final update, which is also just responding to a bunch of DMs that were received. A more official update on things is that Mary and the kids will not be staying with us. As charming an idea as that is, this weekend her brother will be coming to pick them up and they'll be going to live with Mary's parents for now. They live about 6 hours out of town, so it's not an easy drop-off. My god, 6 hours. If that was Australia, you might as well be in another state. We're looking for a counselor for Jack who does telehealth because there aren't really any in her parents' small town. No idea what's happening with the legal stuff. It's only been a couple of days. I'm not sure anyone entirely knows. To those who are worried about Mary and the kids, thank you. Hopefully they'll be okay. Family is rallying all around them and mine, so everyone's taking her side, which is great. Apparently, many people thought his story was unrealistic because he was too heroic throughout, of which he points out to question those parts, such as him being a schmidhead teenager with anger issues beating up the cousin, though that was pretty valid. The part where he came home after all the drama was over, or the part where he panicked when a child burst into tears in front of him and he thought that meant he had to be the dad now. When they make the movie, I want Hugh Jackman to play me. And as expected, there were a lot of people also commenting that they wish they had the harem wife fantasy thing that he had, even though, again, Sally is aromantic and asexual. What? Is reading still taught in schools? And to make me swallow my own comments, the people who were concerned I was endangering Mary and the kids by putting it in a post that Dave might see that they were in my house where he already knew they were, since he already knew, I don't think so. Overall, things have still ended on a somewhat hopeful note. Can only wait and see from here how things go. Over in r/pregnant. This story began way back 8 months ago. Husband is melting down over gender disappointment. So I am 13 weeks and 5 days in and we had our first trimester screening last week with an NIPT test. We sprang for all the genetic testing and this morning they called and told us everything was normal and we're having a girl. Now I am elated. I didn't have a gender preference. I think all genders have their pros and cons, and children are going to be who they're going to be. I guess I'm more excited for the closure that during a time when so much is up in the air, we have an answer to one of the biggest questions we have. I told my husband, and he was happy at first, but said he was a little disappointed because he wanted a boy. But as the day goes on, telling me he really wanted a boy, more intensely than he has letting on through the pregnancy. Like, he would make little jokes about manifesting that the baby is a boy and telling people that he wants the baby to be a boy. He's reading all these articles online about gender disappointment that say what he's going through is normal, but his gender disappointment goes deep. For instance, we live in the southeastern US and he's afraid that our daughter will get subpar healthcare, which is a very reasonable thing to worry about, as well as what if she's LGBTQ+, and she will be mixed race, white and black, and will face discrimination for that too. But then he said he was afraid she will get predated upon, and I said that was a possibility with a boy too. And then he said that he feels less of a bond with our daughter because of sexist stereotypes on his part. Like, oh, what if she likes clothes shopping? I hate clothes shopping. And you have to teach a girl how to be modest. And I can't teach her how to pee. Like, what? I told him kids are going to like what they like. You can get a girl who likes trucks and a boy who likes painting his nails. You can influence that to an extent. But kids are going to be who they're going to be. He also said that girls are
harder to raise.
And it's unfortunate timing that our 12-year-old niece that we take care of got a call home from the principal right as he was saying that. I said, I don't know if girls are so much hard to raise as our niece is hard to raise. We have a small sample size and that's just bad science. He then said he was hoping for a boy because he wanted to be a better father to his son than his own deadbeat father was. And he was slightly insecure about his own masculinity and wanted a son to prove that he could be masculine and raise a masculine son. I said he should unpack that in therapy. He has a therapist he sees once a week on Thursdays. Now, have any of y'all dealt with this? I searched the subreddit, but most of the gender disappointment posts were from the pregnant people themselves, or relatives and friends' gender disappointment, but not the spouse. I like the advice that he'll feel differently when he holds her for the first time, but I mean, that's 6 months from now, and I gotta live with him the whole time. I am trying not to let him ruin my day or excitement, but it's tough. Now, despite what the internet shows us, a lot of comments are actually pretty insightful. Honestly, it sounds more like he's afraid than disappointed. He's afraid he won't be able to relate to her or properly protect her or even be man enough for her. For some reason, he convinced himself that he could be manly for a son, but now he feels out of his depth. And he's right. Loving a daughter will call things out of a man that he didn't know existed. He has all these notions about what masculinity is supposed to look like, but only from the worldview of a little boy. Nothing makes a man feel more scared than being absolutely clueless about how to love a little girl completely dependent on him. But of course, this is Reddit, so gotta stab in that typical, honestly, I think all of this is so majorly rooted in misogyny. I would honestly have a good hard look at who you married and have him take a good hard look at himself and why he feels this. Good luck. Thankfully, not everyone is this blatantly stupid with assuming misogyny the moment someone makes a concern about women's safety in life. As this comment highlights, he's making these comments because he is concerned and afraid about her and his clear uncertainty in how to be a father for a girl. He doesn't think she's less than him. But anyway, that was 8 months ago. Baby's out now. How did it all turn out? An update to the husband's gender disappointment. So long story short, in September, I gave birth to our daughter, and he is so in love with her, it's not even funny. Some things I think helped with his initial gender disappointment were, he got to choose her name. Like some of you said, his therapist helped him realize that his anxiety was less about our daughter's gender itself and more about his anxiety at impending parenthood. Knowing our daughter's gender made the pregnancy real for him. He was freaking out because he knows what it's like to be a boy, but a girl is the unknown of a gender he doesn't know how to be, on top of the unknown of parenting, if that makes sense. Now, he got over himself about his interests not being girly and therefore having nothing in common with her because she's a baby. Her interests right now are shapes, colors, and my boobs. Oh, there you go. You both have something in common. Why it took the birth of his baby girl for him to realize this when he's been married to me, a girl who shares his interests, for 8 years? Well, we will never know. My niece is still difficult to raise, lol, but he has the sense now to realize that she, or his tumultuous relationship with his sister or his mom, is not indicative of all girls and women. I should send his therapist flowers. Also, a point of clarification. When he said he was afraid to have a girl because he didn't like clothes shopping, that wasn't him saying,
women be shopping.
That was him saying he doesn't know how to shop for women's clothes. Which, look, fair. I've been a girl for 32 years and I haven't mastered that.
Where are all the pockets?
All this to say, the gender disappointment issue ended up being that he ruined one day I had back in March of this year. He loves our daughter, does not resent her for not being a boy, and didn't leave me over his gender disappointment. I just want other parents experiencing this to know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you to everyone who weighed in. I felt really validated. Now over to some devils. Am I the a-hole for not letting my girlfriend crash at my place while she finds a new apartment? My girlfriend and I have been together for a little under 2 years now. Things have been going well, I think. Her roommate has moved out of state and now my girlfriend needs a place to stay temporarily. We both work and live in a fairly large city, i.e. not easy to find affordable arrangements. My place is pretty spacious, yes. However, it's just not suitable for anything more than one person. My uncle gave me this loft. Oh, of course it's an uncle. And the 50% of assets he didn't donate to charity. And was a bachelor all his life, which is definitely how the space is intended to be used. If I had to pay for a similar space in this part of the city, it would be 5 to 6k plus rent, i.e. 30 to 35% of my pre-tax pay, so I definitely don't want to move anytime soon. Okay, my money is immediately on this being a troll post, but just look, there are people who are this genuinely ignorant. Oh wow, an entire 30 to 35% of your pay going to your rent? Whoa, you're right, the economy here in 1980 is absurd. If you don't know what a loft is, my bedroom is on another floor from the living room kitchen area, but there's no physical wall between them. This means you can literally hear everything. Great for living by myself, tolerable with anyone else long term. That would mean I can't play on my PC in the bedroom late at night or watch TV in the living room. If you wake up in the middle of the night and want a quesadilla, you can definitely smell what's being cooked in the kitchen and hear the blower. There's also very little privacy anywhere besides the bathroom. I'm sure there are some entire families living in arrangements like this. There are also families living in huts or closet apartments in Hong Kong. Great argument. She shouldn't be allowed to stay because people live in smaller and worse places in other countries. My girlfriend would have to commute 70 to 80 minutes to get here from her parents' house. However, she assured me she would only need 3 months to find a place, so it's not as if it would be that long-term of a situation. I mean, there's plenty of people who commute every day. It's no big deal. I really don't think she has any reason to be so upset with me about not wanting to do this. Am I the a-hole? Survey says,
Oh, guys, have you ever heard of this thing called a loft? You'll have to Google it.
Tragically, I am an engaged woman, so I'm not allowed to have such knowledge of bachelor lofts. Well, congrats on finding someone who is willing to settle down and give up on late-night quesadillas. Though others support one's right to personal space. Nata, if you don't want her there, don't have her move in. 3 months will turn into longer. You don't owe her a place to live. It's your place. If you aren't ready to have her move in, that's fine. She shouldn't pressure you. Others agree that, I value my alone time, and 3 months without quiet and privacy would make my head explode. A week or two, sure, but not 30 months, which is just an estimate. I'm sure they meant to say 3 there, but hey, why not just completely conflate the numbers? Also, I want to know if her roommate sprung this on her last minute. Why hasn't she been looking? Or was she just assuming she would move in with you? Others think based on your privileged situation, she's also not going to feel like she needs to actually chip in with rent, with others adding on that apparently that's actually a thing that can happen with some people. But I feel this is one of those arguments that falls flat in the case of trying to be the better person in the scenario, because that's just going to make her further be the wrong person. And at this point, you're just coming up with theoretical excuses not to go through with this. But yeah, despite what you might have assumed at first reading the story, a lot of people in the comments are actually in a lot of support for letting him have his personal space. Of course, there are many yatars as well. They aren't the majority, but they are the loudest, as they give a yatar for a specific reason. The fact that you care more about not being able to play video games at night than the fact that your girlfriend has to find a place to live temporarily says everything I need to know. And a great point here, when I was young and had roommates, I invented a genius way to play video games while they slept. Headphones.
Headphones? What wizardry do you speak of?
Yeah, even on the Devil subreddit, many people are also calling out the stupid excuses he has. I mean, the dude even prioritizing his masturbatory habits over her. Oh, I hadn't even thought about it, but that's another issue. There's literally nowhere you can do your business in privacy, besides the bathroom, which is horrible for that purpose. It's just a horrible place for more than one person to live for so many reasons. So yeah, it seems very apparent that despite one's right to privacy and personal space, this guy clearly just wants to have a single life. He clearly idolizes his uncle's youth, and now that he has a sweet bachelor bad to experience that with, I mean, I'm not surprised he kind of would rather have no woman be bound to him within the confines of his play space. But that's my 2 cents on it. Again, one does have a right to personal space and all that. Either way, despite quite a numerous amount of people defending this guy, I do leave it up to you on your thoughts on this. Is this a valid person establishing boundaries, or are they just clearly trying to get the best of both worlds? Anyway, that's the end of today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.